topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Barry G. Fowler, EA, brings you Tax Talk for You right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. As an enrolled agent and a national leader in tax resolution, as well as trucker, bookkeeping, and tax planning with over 30 years of experience, Barry will break down taxes, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax relief for individuals and businesses just like you. So let's have some Tax Talk for You with your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Welcome and good morning. Another great Monday. Man, we had a great weekend this weekend. My wife and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year, and the church was doing a 25th anniversary jubilee, which was fantastic. We got to renew our vows, so we had a great weekend with a bunch of other couples, and got to take some pictures with the Archbishop here in the Diocese of Galveston, Houston. So it was actually a fun weekend. Really enjoyed it. But now, we got to get on to the scary stuff. Hey, what scares you more than an IRS letter that comes in? Those IRS notices, you just see the envelope and it says Internal Revenue Service on it. And most people don't want to open that letter at all and read what the IRS is saying. We know IRS notices is official letter communicating what problems or what information or potential issues, changes, actions that they could be requiring concerning your taxes. Receiving an IRS notice doesn't necessarily mean that there's a problem, but it does require attention to ensure compliance and avoid possible penalties and additional complications. So you kind of got to open that letter to know what's going on with the IRS. So what is an IRS notice and why am I receiving one? IRS notice is simply a letter from the IRS notifying you something important that may be related to your tax return. It sounds scary, but sometimes it's just a way to keep you updated or ask for more information. Now, there are several possible reasons that you're going to be getting IRS notices. Of course, we all know you have a balance due. So you owe money, you filed your tax return, and you owe them money. The IRS is going to send you notice of balance due. Or the IRS believes that you're going to owe additional tax. They'll send you a notice. Maybe your refund changed. Your refund amount could be either more or it could be less than what you're expecting. They're going to send you a notice explaining it. Then you can verify what's in the notice and take actions as you're supposed to. The IRS has a question maybe about your tax return. They need clarification or additional information. They're going to send you, guess what? A notice. Maybe the IRS needs to verify your identity to make sure you filed the return and not someone else. It's going to explain to you what you need to do and what the process is to verify your identity with the IRS. Now, that brings up something real quick here is that, getting an identity PIN is sometimes a great way to make sure that nobody else is going to be filing a tax return for you. Um, when you do request that ID PIN, they change that PIN every single year, and you get notices of it every single year. So I do recommend getting that ID PIN just to keep your tax account safe with the IRS. The IRS will also send you a notice if you have delays in processing your return, or delays in handling your tax return, or delays of processing information. So it's really, really important that you read the notices carefully, follow any instructions that are provided, and then reply to the address that they're providing to you. Ignoring the IRS and an IRS notice can lead to other enforcement actions, such as additional interest, additional penalties. So you want to make sure you're opening those letters and taking the appropriate action. Now, we know, again, those letters are scary. And many people don't even open them because they're scared of what the IRS is going to say. And the letter itself isn't going to bite. The letter itself isn't going to do anything to you. Maybe give you a paper cut, if you're mishandling paper. But other than that, the letter itself does nothing. Now, it warns you. It informs you. It scares the bejeebies out of you. But, it's something that's out there that is absolutely necessary to start the collection process going forward. So, you want to make sure, again, you open that letter. Now, when you owe the IRS, they send you these letters and notices. You're going to receive various notices, various letters with specific instructions and deadlines. So, we're going to go through some common IRS notices and what they mean. So that when you're sitting there opening that letter, you're going to see in the upper right-hand corner, it's going to have a notice, and it's going to have a notice number. So one of the first notices you're going to get is a CP-14. This is one of the most common notices. It tells you, guess what? You owe money on your taxes, such as unpaid taxes, penalties, interest. Just a simple reminder to pay the IRS as soon as possible to avoid more penalties, more interest. So on this notice, you're going to see it's going to tell you the exact amount due, including penalties and interest, and request payment within 21 days. Hey, if you can afford to pay it, pay it. Get it done, get it over with. Stop the penalties, stop the interest, stop the collection notices, stop the scariness in your life. Those things right there can be very important. Maybe it's, if you owe for more than just this 1 year, maybe you owe quite a bit and you can't afford to pay it. Well, it's time to take some kind of action. And it can be simple as getting an installment agreement in place. It could be just getting a hold in place for more time to get money together. Now, the hold isn't going to stop penalties and interest. Those are still going to accumulate. The only way you're going to stop those penalties and interest is by paying, this tax debt off. But if you ignore it, and then you ignore the CP-14, guess what? You got that right. The IRS sends another letter. This is going to be a CP-501. So if you don't pay after receiving the CP-14, the IRS is going to send the CP-501. Again, that notice number is up in the upper right-hand corner of your notice. And again, it's going to inform you that you have a balance due on one of your tax accounts. The notice indicates that the IRS is now actively pursuing collection and requires your immediate attention. This means wake up. This means start addressing the problem before this gets worse. This means put a installment agreement in place if you can afford it. Put a hold on it. Go get a loan from the bank. Maybe get a loan out of your 401k. Maybe ask friends and family to borrow some money to put this debt away so that you don't have to continue paying penalties and interest. I mean, when penalties and interest continue to accrue on this, it becomes very, very expensive. And depending on what penalties you have on there, it could be adding 25 to 50% to the debt because you ignored paying the tax. You didn't make your estimated tax payments. You didn't pay the tax when it was due on April 15th. You didn't pay it when you filed it. All these things continue to add to your debt and just makes matters worse. If you're well beyond that period, sometimes the penalties have stopped and now you're just making interest, and interest continues to accrue. So what's the next notice that you're going to get? Hey, we're going to find out right after this quick break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. If you owe the IRS or are going through an IRS audit, don't go at it alone. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. We are your solution for IRS debts, audits, back taxes, garnishments, liens, and levies. Whether you're an individual or business, you need a solution and a strong, aggressive tax resolution. Don't let the IRS walk all over you. Stop the IRS now. Call 888-930-1016 or go to taxationsolutions.net now for a free, no obligation consultation. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Hey, the IRS is scary, and dealing with the IRS as a taxpayer and as somebody that owes money to the IRS, this can be one of the scariest things in your family. And these notices are there to remind you, but those notices can be very, very scary. So, you've received the CP-14, you ignored it, you've gone beyond the 21 days that they requested your payment. You received the CP-501, which is the next letter after the CP-14, that again informed you of your balance due and that the IRS is actively pursuing you and your family for collections. Now, if that wasn't scary enough, they're going to issue another letter, CP-504. This service notice gives you a more urgent reminder that your tax debt remains, guess what? Unpaid. Yeah, if you didn't know you missed it on the CP-14 and the CP-501, they're going to send you that CP-503 because you stuck your head in the sand and you ignored the first two notices, and they noticed that you, guess what, didn't pay them. They hadn't heard from you, and you still have an unpaid balance on one of your tax accounts. This is basically your third reminder that you still owe a balance on your tax, as if you didn't know that you ignored the other two and you would forget within 4 to 6 months. They send you this next notice. That you haven't received a payment. You haven't given them a response. No, I'm going to tell you, you responded to them, you called them, basically you told them you couldn't afford to pay. Basically told them maybe you got to figure out a payment plan. They told you what the amount was, and you said you got to think about it. They're still sending you this notice. You may have replied to them. They're sending you this notice. They're still advising you that they know that this debt is still there and you still owe them. So get them paid. The IRS wants their money and they want it now. So don't ignore it. Get some activity on it. Because guess what? If you don't put a payment plan in place, maybe you don't put it in non-collectible, maybe you haven't addressed what the issue is in this and you're owing money, but you could fix it through maybe doing amended return, maybe doing a return correctly. Maybe it's something that you got to fix on there and then the IRS is wrong. Guess what? They're hitting you with the next notice. And this becomes your CP 504, your notice of intent to levy. This comes from Internal Revenue Code section 6331D. The notice that the IRS intends to levy. If you don't pay this amount due immediately, the IRS can levy your income, your bank accounts, seize your property or your right to property, including your state income tax refunds, to pay the amount you owe the IRS. So did you get this? This is your notice of intent to levy. This is sent out as it's required by the Internal Revenue Code section 6331D. It's your final reminder telling you that the IRS is intending to levy again. Not to scare you, but this should scare you. They're intending to levy your wages, your bank account, or state tax refund because you still have that unpaid balance on your tax account. Now, it also is going to tell you that they're going to begin searching for other assets on which to issue a levy. So to avoid this, you got to start dealing with the amount you owe immediately. Now, to scare you, the IRS does levies. They levy your bank account. Anything that has you're attached, or if you filed married filing jointly, your wife's attached, Social Security number to it. So any account that you have, bank, IRA, 401k, 529 plans, 503B plans, you name it, has a Social Security number attached to it with your Social Security number, or wife's Social Security number, spouses, partners, whoever you're filing with, it's going to get levied. You have kids' accounts and your Social Security number's on those kids' accounts with theirs, those accounts can be levied. So yes, this should scare the bejeebies out of you, scare you into some kind of action immediately. Because generally you have 30 to 45 days and the IRS is going to levy. Now, what makes matters worse, if you look at these levies, it says right there, IRS can levy your income, W-2 wages. They can send the levy to your employer. If you're a contractor and you get 1099 income, IRS will look at everybody you're getting income from and levy against potential income you're receiving from anybody you're doing contract work for before they pay you. Now, difference between getting your wage levied and your income garnished that's contract work is wage levy has a limited amount that they can pull out. They're trying to still leave you with what they consider a livable wage. When they levy against your contract work, they're taking 100%. They have to pay in 100% of your income up until it satisfies that levy. So you got to remember, it is something you need to address sooner rather than later. Because if you're an independent contractor and you're working and they take 100% of your money, it's a bit hard enough to make your bills meet when they're taking a percentage of your wages versus taking 100% of your income. And then you've got other bills to pay, both business and personal. So, and it's hard enough when they levy your bank account and they take 100% of your money out of your bank account that you then have to figure out how to meet your mortgage or your utility bills or your car payment or your food bills, you name it, credit card payments. All these things become impossible when there's nothing to pay out of your bank. So, and then they're starting to look for any other assets that they can attach to and issue the levy. Now, they can also, the IRS, file a notice of federal tax lien if they haven't already done so. And a lien is a public notice to your creditors that the IRS has a right to your interest in your current assets and any assets you acquire after they file the lien, and it can affect greatly the ability to get credit. Being able to get credit sometimes is very difficult. And when you've got tax liens on you, it brings your credit scores down, and it makes it almost impossible to go out there and get a mortgage or new credit cards or any other kind of loan until this IRS debt is satisfied. Now, also in this notice, it's going to explain the denial or revocation of a United States passport. So the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act generally prohibits the State Department from issuing or renewing a passport to a taxpayer with seriously delinquent tax debt. You can find more information on the IRS website about passports and stuff. But, if they pull your passport and you have to travel for business or work, you're not going to be able to travel anywhere. And I've seen some of our clients that have these passports and had it revoked because they were seriously delinquent in their tax debt, and they have to travel for business and it affected their jobs. So, you kind of want to be aware of the different things the IRS can do. And these letters are scary, but you have to address them. Now, what happens if I don't pay or contact the IRS? And those are things we're going to discuss right after this quick break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for you. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Trucker Tax Tools handles all your bookkeeping and taxes no matter what level trucker you are. Life on the road can be taxing, but that doesn't mean that your wallet or time with your family should suffer. Trucker Tax Tools makes your life run smoothly. Go to truckertaxtools.com for a free guide that will give you the tools to never worry about your taxes again. Call Trucker Tax Tools at 877-966-2477 or go to truckertaxtools.com now and let the experts keep you trucking. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
I know the scariness of owing the IRS sometimes puts people into a panic. Sometimes it shuts people down. Sometimes they just stick their head in the sand and hope it's just going to go away. IRS doesn't go away on their own. It may seem like the IRS is a little bit slow in collection activities today, but part of that has to do with government shutdown. Part of that has to do with knowing where the economy is. But if they see that you're making money and they see that you've got the wherewithal to potentially, in their opinion, to pay, they're coming after you. Sticking your head in the sand or ignoring the IRS doesn't work. We've talked quite a bit about the letters and some of the things that they can do when you don't contact them, when you don't pay. But if you don't pay the amount due to the IRS within the time frame of the notice, or immediately, or make payment arrangements, and they file the notice of federal tax lien, that publicly establishes priority with your creditors. And if the tax lien's in place, again, it's going to make it difficult to sell or borrow against your property. The tax lien is going to greatly affect your ability to get credit. And of course, it's going to harm your credit ratings. And then, of course, the IRS can seize, levy state tax refunds to which you would be entitled. If there's still balances due after they seize your state tax refund, and take any federal tax refunds that you got coming in, they're going to send you a notice of a right to a hearing before the IRS Independent Office of Appeals. If you haven't got such a notice already, you would probably be getting one shortly. They can also then seize or take possession of your other property or rights to property, which includes wages, real estate commissions, and other income, bank accounts, business assets, personal assets, including your car, your home. They can even levy against your Social Security benefits. Now, if you don't believe me that the IRS will take people's homes, business assets, cars, you can actually go to the U.S. Department of Treasury and look on their website. They have an auction place where they auction off assets that they have acquired or taken from taxpayers to satisfy their tax debt. We had a revenue officer who really was going after one of our clients. Now, unfortunately for our client, and our client did everything they could to drag their feet. They were not making anything easy. They broke 3 or 4 different agreements with the IRS. This revenue officer resorted several times into levying their bank accounts. Unfortunately for our client, they decided they would stick their head in the sand. They would ignore things. We actually had them set up on an offer and compromise, and within months, they broke the offer and compromise by choice. Now, why? We don't know. We couldn't get at the answer. We told our client point blank, they continue to do this. 1, we can't represent you because we're not going to continue to go down this route. 2, they are going to take the assets. They agreed with us. They were going to actually sell their home themselves, put it up on the market. First, they put it up on an unreasonable price. Second, they finally got a reasonable offer, and they agreed to the price and had a signed contract. IRS agreed they would take this money in an offer and be the settlement for their debt. And the client decided they weren't going to go through with the sale. IRS went and took their home. Nothing we could do about it. We even told the client, at this point, we can't represent you because you have done everything to fight us to find ways to help you settle your tax debt and get the resolution you needed for your life. So, you got to be wary of what you're doing when you're dealing with the IRS. Now, we always recommend if you have an IRS problem, get help. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief, taxationsolutions.net. Call 888-930-1016. Again, 888-930-1016. Get the help that you need today to resolve your tax problem. So get a resolution. Do something to help yourself settle your tax debt and set this behind you. Now, some of the other notices that you're going to get is you're going to get something like a CP 523. If you receive the 523, 523 SP, or 623 notice, the IRS is informing you of an intent to terminate an installment agreement and seize or levy your assets because you have defaulted. Now, you got a little bit of time. You should be contacting the IRS as soon as possible, but no later than 30 days from the date of the notice. The other notice you can be getting is a CP90. Now, remember that notice is CP90 or any other notice is going to be in the upper right-hand corner of it. It's going to say notice number. You can actually look up some of the notice numbers on the IRS website and see what some of the meaning is behind it and how much time you would have to possibly respond. But the CP90 notice is similar to the 523. It warns that the IRS plans to take action to collect what you owe, such as seizing property, and you usually have 30 days to resolve the issue before they take any action. They do intend to levy certain assets for unpaid taxes. And that's what they're informing you of and informing you right to a collection due process hearing. And we're going to go through the collection due process hearing here in just a minute. It is something that you need to know of, and it's a way of addressing IRS problems. Another notice that you're going to receive as well is letter 1058. It's a final notice of intent to levy and your rights to a hearing. It informs you that the IRS is going to levy your assets, wages, bank accounts, business assets. See, do you notice what the IRS is continuing to do? Telling you, here is what we are going to do to collect the debt that they are owed because you're not addressing the tax debt problem. It gives you 30 days to figure out what you're going to do. You have 30 days from this notice to request a hearing to help explore collection alternatives or even appeal the proposed levy action. Your letter 3172, notice of federal tax lien filings. And again, your right to a hearing. So, gives you the right for appealing the lien, discuss payment options, This is not a notice of proposed lien, but a notice of a lien that has already been filed with your local county recorder. It puts the whole world on notice of your unpaid tax balances. And guess what? Not only do you start receiving those notices, but now you're going to be receiving notices from different tax firms saying, hey, you have this lien on you and on your property. Some of those are some advertising scams. You're going to get possibly phone calls off of those liens as well. So it's best to start taking care of the tax problem with a reputable tax firm like Taxation Solutions, .net, Tax Relief, and dealing with your tax problem here today before it gets worse. Now, the IRS gives you ways of dealing with this, especially if you disagree with the notice. And that is requesting a collection due process hearing. We're going to go through collection due process hearings and how to request it right after this short break.
We have only scratched the surface of today's show. Please stand by as Barry G. Fowler will be right back with Tax Talk for You. As an owner-operator, you already spend too much time away from your family. Stop spending time doing paperwork. Go to truckertaxtools.com, a solution built specifically for truckers. Truckertaxtools.com makes your life run smoothly. Let's get back to Tax Talk for You with more Tax Talk. Once again, here's your host, Barry G. Fowler.
Okay, so you disagree with all the notices the IRS has sent you. Yeah, we all disagree with notices and being taxed, and we all feel we're taxed too much. Or maybe you feel like taxes were never approved or validated and not constitutional. Those things don't matter. Really don't. But you have good grounds. Let's say that you've paid it. Let's say the IRS was absolutely wrong in assessing this balance, and you could get no action on anything that you file. Now, you can go to Taxpayer Advocate. You can file a Form 911 and ask for their help, and they will give you some help on trying to resolve some of the issues that you may be having. But you can also, when you're disagreeing with that notice for cause, request a collection due process hearing using Form 12153. Form 12153 to request a collection due process or equivalent hearing. Now, why should I request a collection due process hearing? Well, CDP hearing, collection due process, gives you the opportunity to appeal the intent to levy and address any other issues you may have with your tax situation. Now, you got to understand what your CDP rights are. So when you receive that final notice of intent to levy 1058, notice of federal tax lien 3172, you have important rights under this CDP process. And the CDP procedures gives you a safeguard that is put in place by Congress that requires the IRS to follow a set of procedures to ensure you, as a taxpayer, have protections when facing IRS levy and lien actions. That includes the right to have the CDP hearing within 30 days of the notice, the opportunity to propose alternative payment arrangements such as an installment agreement or offer in compromise, maybe even a partial pay installment agreement. It also gives you the ability to dispute the underlying tax liability in certain circumstances. It's going to give you the right to a judicial review in tax court if you disagree with the hearing determination. Now, during the CDP hearing, you're going to have the IRS's quote unquote independent Office of Appeals, and they're going to verify that all legal procedural requirements have been met. Did they send out the notices properly? Did they give them all within the proper timing? Now, just because you didn't receive the notice because you didn't go pick up the certified letter from the post office, well, it's constructive receipt when it hit the post office. So you did receive it even if you didn't pick it up. It's going to consider any legitimate issues raised about the collection action. They're going to evaluate whether the proposed collection action balances the government's need to collect taxes with your legitimate concern that it be no more intrusive than necessary. They're trying to collect. Almost everything they've done has been necessary. Now, you are allowed to represent yourself at an appeal hearing. However, we do recommend you have a good tax attorney, enrolled agent, somebody there to help you bring a better understanding and knowledge of how to present information and evidence to this appeal hearing. You know, it becomes strategically important when you're in a CDP hearing to know what you're doing and how to do it. Just like approaching how to read and understand your IRS notices. Having that understanding and having the professional qualifications is the same as hiring somebody like a master electrician to come in and redo electrical wiring in your house. You don't want to approach that yourself because if you do it wrong, your house burns down and you've got bigger problems. That's the same way of approaching sometimes dealing with the IRS, whether it's an appeal hearing or even just dealing with the IRS letters. Now let's back up. Let's talk about how I should approach the IRS notices and letters that are being sent. Reading and understanding an IRS notice. So when you receive that IRS notice, it's important to approach it methodically. Ensure that you understand the issue and take the appropriate actions. So what should you do? First, read. Read the notice carefully. Identify the notice type. Like we talked about, all the numbers, the upper right-hand corner has a notice identifier. It's going to say CP 14, CP 501. Understand the reason. The notice often explains the reasons like balance due, return changes, request for additional information, verifying identity. Step 2, compare with your records. Review your tax return. Check your original return for discrepancies. Check supporting documentation. Verify the notice details with W-2s, 1099s, other records. Step 3, determine the required action. Follow the instructions. Respond as directed. Providing documents, making payments, contacting the IRS. Meet those deadlines. Act promptly to avoid penalties or loss of appeal rights. Step 4, payment options. Pay what you can. If you owe, pay as much as possible. Explore IRS payment plans if needed. Step 5, now, if you're trying to do it yourself, step 5 is contacting the IRS if necessary. I think step 5 is calling Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. Get us involved. Let us stop the IRS. Whatever the reason, whether it's clarifying doubts. And if you are going to do it yourself, call the number in the notice for assistance. If you get suspicious notice, If fraud suspected, contact the IRS or use the IRS phishing reporting line or reporting page and report suspicious activities. Step 6, keep your documents. Get your documents in order. Save the notices, your responses, save the supporting documents for future reference. I'm going to tell you, by carefully reading, comparing records, responding timely, appropriately to an IRS notice, letter, you can resolve issues efficiently and avoid further complications. Getting Taxation Solutions Tax Relief involved assists you, helps you, steps into your boots to provide the assistance to make sure that somebody is there on your side, comparing records, responding appropriately, responding timely to IRS notices to resolve your issues efficiently and avoid that further complication. Now, you ignore the letters, you ignore the notices. The IRS notices that you receive can be extremely intimidating, but it can lead to severe consequences. Take the appropriate action. Avoid the problems escalating. Maybe you can avoid the accrual of interest and penalties because they're going to add interest and penalties to every amount you owe. These taxes and charges of penalties and interest can make the debt grow quickly, make it much higher than it originally was. And ignoring those notices, this means that you're going to have extremely extra costs. You have the power to take action. You have the power to get somebody on your side to represent you that's going to be the people that fight against the IRS. And whether it's Taxation Solutions, Tax Relief, taxationsolutions.net, or somebody else, get a qualified enrolled agent in place to deal with the IRS today and now. Hey, back taxes is hard. Call Taxation Solutions Tax Relief at 888-930-1016. Again, 888-930-1016. Hey, we brought a lot of information here to you. We brought a lot of things to help you deal with the IRS and deal with your tax problem. And that's what we do here in Tax Talk for You. Don't miss an episode of our show. Go to taxtalk4u.com and follow us there, or follow us on Facebook. Go look us up at Tax Talk for You and be here every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Don't miss these shows. We're going to continue to bring you information to help you deal with the scariness of the IRS, the scariness of resolving tax issues, maybe audits. Maybe it's just trying to find ways to lower those taxes and prevent paying as much money on taxes. Maybe it's finding ways to get through the system and keep more money in your pocket and pay less in taxes. And that's what we do. Again, tune in here Mondays, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, W4CY.com, W4CY Radio. Here at Tax Talk for You, go to Tax Talk, the number 4, letter U.com. But whatever you do, be here Monday. Come with you armed with questions. We'll answer those questions right here during the show for you. Have a great week. Have a God-blessed, glorious week. enjoy this wonderful day that we have set forward with us. Stop the IRS now. Call Taxation Solutions at taxationsolutions.net. We'll see you next week. Have a God bless week.
Are you an individual or business that wants to understand taxes and how they affect you? Are you looking for specific tax advice for self-employed, business owners, and truckers? Are you behind on taxes and your bookkeeping? Are you dealing with the IRS and ready to have some relief? Then you need Tax Talk for You, hosted by tax and trucker expert Barry G. Fowler, EA. Tune in 10 a.m. Eastern Time every Monday right here on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Don't forget to check this and past episodes at taxtalkforyou.com. See you next week at W4CY.com.